In a depot like this, an enormous amount of Sundries traffic is handled every year. But there is a great deal of capacity for even more. A new specialist organisation, the British Rail Sundries Division, has been set up, and a lot of people want to know how it is going to work. Hugh Thomas went to see its general manager, Mr. Bobby Lawrence.
This is Dan. Very nice to see you again.
Thank you. Mr. Lawrence, a number of people have had a go at trying to make a success of running this Sundries business. How are you going to succeed when the previous organisation has failed?
Well, right from the start, I will deny that the previous organisation failed. It would be very unfair to them to say so. The National Sundries Plan, which has been developed over the last 2 or 3 years, did in fact do a very good job in reorganising the Sundries activity of British Railways with the object of improving the service. I'm cashing in on that experience. I'm polishing the National Sundries Plan. I'm altering it in minor measures in accordance with what has happened. But the net result of all that is that I am already in a position to offer an improved service which is very much based upon the very hard work that was put in by my predecessors.
But it'll be essentially the same team running this new service as before, won't it?
It is not the same men. It is built up around a nucleus of men who partly look after this activity, but it has never been before a separate management function.
Could it be said to be the same enormous, faceless organisation under a new name?
I would never agree to start with, as a railwayman with some 30 years' experience, I would never agree to start with that the railways have ever been a faceless organisation. But I think it is true to say that by having a small specialised team managing this sector of the industry, it is quite obvious that they and the personnel around them can make much more of a personal impact, not only internally, but externally as well, and destroy, if there is anything, of what you term a faceless image.
Now, let's just take the image of the name Sundries. To me, that suggests odds and ends. In fact, I looked up the dictionary before I came, and I found that Sundries means items not needing special attention.
Well, that's about the last thing you can say about Sundries. Apart from human beings, they are about the one commodity going by rail which needs a lot of attention and gets it. Sundries was used because it has been a traditional classification in the railway terminology for a long time. Basically, the railway divides its commodities into coal, iron and steel, and so on, and then there were sundries for the small packages. But it does project an uncertain image, shall we call it that, and I'm looking for a new name. And if you or anyone else can produce one, then I will certainly not only consider it and possibly accept it, but also give a small reward.
If I were a potential Sundries customer, how would you persuade me to use your rail services as opposed to the road competitors?
We now have a continuous sampling arrangement by which a small percentage of our traffic is continuously being sampled for service. And I can tell you, within a decimal point, the quality of service that we're giving from day to day. And it is that I would quote to you for your particular traffics. But there are 2 other factors. Freightliner has now come in, and I am exploiting Freightliner for Sundries traffic, the maximum possible extent. And the other factor is the Minister recently gave an order which allows me to give throughout road movement to Sundries traffic. I couldn't do it before. And by using them, both factors will help to improve transit times considerably. And of course, we will take into account the spare capacity of other nationalised transport undertakings.
What about price? Will you be able to compete effectively there?
This is a subject which I can specialise on and am specialising on in order to ensure that we have the right design of vehicle for the job, and this with a redeployment of the cartage fleet to meet the new depot pattern which I have planned and in implementing will put us very much in the market on cartage charges and the costs of operation.
Mr. Lawrence, I know of a big customer of yours who gave up using the railways because of all the pilfering they suffered. What are you going to do about that?
Well, pilferage is a national problem. Let's be clear, it doesn't only live with the railways. Organised crime is developing and expanding the whole time. So are our countermeasures, which we are taking and developing. But there is another factor too. I come back to the freight liner. The employment of freight liner containers, which seals up the packages in a metal container from door to door, increases the security by a very high ratio.
Of course, handling at the depots is the vital factor, isn't it? What fresh ideas are you introducing there?
Well, I have a very small section in my headquarters which is dealing with developments in materials handling. And they are working on such equipment as automatic conveyors, conveyor belts, power-operated trolleys, and also the best means by which we can deal with freight liner containers within the depots. I think that sums it up. I'm operating there on a very wide field and bringing in the improvements as they're developed.
Of course, you'll have to go out and sell this service, won't you?
Selling, of course, is a problem, and the whole organization has got to sell. I'm only going to have a very modest number of actual salesmen. The depot managers are expected to do the major part of the selling throughout the entire system, and I would like you to remember this, that the best salesman we have is the motor driver. The motor driver is in intimate day-to-day contact with the customers, and I'm relying on him more than anyone to bring home the bacon and sell this improved service.
Mr. Lawrence, I think many people would like to know whether the forming of this new division of yours means redundancy and movement of personnel.
It's bound to mean movement of personnel. The whole pattern of loading, organisation and everything else is changing rapidly. It has been changing before the Sundries Division started. That change is going on. Movement, yes, but we are only carrying a tithe of the business we should be carrying, and I hope that by these various improvements that we're making, particularly in service, the business will expand and we'll need more staff rather than less.
How is your new management to be organised?
Well, basically, it's a... I think I'd better show you this on the map. The headquarters is in London, and there are 6 areas with an area manager in charge of each. The southern area, the western area, the Midland area, which includes the northwest, the eastern, the northeastern, and of course Scotland. Now the first tier of management is at depot level, and the depot managers are located at the point you can see marked by dots on this map. Now this is the really effective level of the organisation from which the action must stem in accordance with the plans that I've outlined to you.
Is there a future at all for a young man in Sundries?
A considerable future. To start with, I'm not a young man, but I wouldn't be in the Sundries Division if there wasn't a future in it. But having said that, in many senses, it's a new era, and in an expanding business, there is always a place for a young man who will develop with the business.
Now, if a Sundries man does pull his weight, what is there in this for him?
My job. But you have somebody has got to be at the top of the tree, and I see no reason why a young man coming in at the bottom cannot work his way progressively to the top, particularly, I emphasize, in an expanding organisation.
Will the best jobs be in head office?
No. The best job, and I speak now with a certain amount of feeling, the best job is on the ground. Managing on the ground is always a challenge, it's always interesting, and I hope I have devised ways and means whereby the depot manager, the manager in the field, will have the least amount of interference from the higher echelons, of which there are very few.
Well, Mr. Lawrence, you seem to have confidence that Sundries will succeed. Do you think you can carry the rest of the workers with you?
Yes. I've devised the organisation so that the men will, throughout the system, be in intimate contact with the local management. And I'm sure that in that way, we can all pull in the same direction to make a success of Sundries.